Hey, Daily Dosers, if you are a parent, we hate thinking of things like this, but have you ever wondered, what would I do to someone who harmed my child? What would you do if someone laid a hand on your son or your daughter? Today on the Daily Dose, we're going to get a picture of what the people of ancient Israel believed God would do to someone who hurt one of God's children. Folks, the book of Obadiah is the shortest book in the Old Testament, and it sort of paints a picture of what the ancient people believed God's response would be to anyone who would harm one of God's children. You see, the book is all about the people of Edom. We call them Edomites. Edom was a mountainous nation. It occupied the region sort of southeast of the Dead Sea. They were descendants of Esau, and so they were blood relatives of the people of Israel, the Israelites. Like Esau from the story of Jacob and Esau, they were a rugged, fierce, and proud people. They were warriors. And of all people, when their relatives to the north, the Israelites, were being attacked and harmed and harassed, the Edomites should have rushed to their aid, the aid of their relatives. Instead, what did they do? They did the exact opposite. They gloated over Israel's problems. They captured and delivered fugitives to their enemy, and they even looted Israel's countryside. You see, the Edomites hurt God's children, the Israelites. And so in this book, this short book, Obadiah delivers God's message to the Edomites. Because of their indifference to the plight of their siblings in Israel, their cowardice, their pride, they would be destroyed. From the very first verse of the book, Obadiah announces this disaster that was coming to Edom. Obadiah gives reason after reason for their destruction, their blatant arrogance towards God, and their lack of compassion for God's children. The book would close with a warning of God's judgment that would fall on anyone who would dare harm one of God's children. Now, here's what I know. For many of us, describing God as vindictive or violent is troubling, and it should be. We have a God who is merciful and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love. Now, though it never excuses the violence, I think we need to remember that this passage was written in a deeply violent period of history. But more importantly, this passage, it points us to the deep, deep love that God has for anyone who would harm one of God's children. A God who would do anything when one of God's children is harmed or hurting. A God for whom nothing will ever get in the way of God's love for people like you and me. We might also recall that it's this love that compelled this God to take his place on the cross in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. A God who said, I'll do whatever it takes, even give up my own son as a sacrifice, that my children would no longer be harmed. Friends, you have a God who has a love for his children, for you and me, a love that is greater. It's greater than we could ever imagine. Folks, thanks for tuning in to the Daily Dose. If you're watching on Facebook, you can always share this. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell so you get notifications. If you're watching on cable access, invite a friend. We'll see you soon.